Hey everybody, it's tafony here once again. Hope you're doing well. Today we're rambling about the Rossum Electro Music Panharmonium. It is a mutating spectral resynthesizer and it sounds like this. Okay, before we get started with this one, I need to give a huge shout out, a huge thank you to Matt for lending me this one to cover today. I really appreciate it. I couldn't do it without the help of all y'all, so thank you so much. What is it? Is a very good question. I mean, it is the first item in the manual. Never before have I seen, what is this thing? Start a manual. And it is a very good question. They describe it as a unique music and sound design tool that lets you analyze the spectral content of any audio signal and use that analysis to drive a bank from 1 to 33 oscillators, which is on here in the voices section. Depending on its settings, a Panharmonium can accurately reproduce the input spectrum in real time or modify it into a multitude of wildly creative ways. So that's how they describe it. If I can sort of make my own comparison here, and this applies to the Spectrophon as well. If you've ever used Adobe Illustrator, and I'm going to wager that that probably is a fair bit of those who watch this video, if you've ever taken a raster image, like a photo, and converted it using image trace to a vector graphic, that's sort of like how I'm thinking about this, but for sound. So you can do things to a raster image, like you can filter or wavefold or shape a sound coming in. But what the Panharmonium is basically doing is using that image metaphor I was using. If you're converting that into a vector image, you're creating something new and losing some of the fidelity in the process, but presenting an opportunity to shape it, craft it in different ways. While you can shape a raster image, you can filter it, you can edit it, you can use Photoshop. If you're editing a vector that you've created by image tracing, you can do things, in the case of the Panharmonium, like wave shaping it, warping it, feeding it back, blurring the lines across different spectra, analyzing specific parts of it, kind of like in a vector image, you could change its color completely. You could reshape certain parts of it. Now, you lose some of the fidelity in the process. You're creating something new from it. It is not a one-to-one comparison, but when you try to make it a one-to-one comparison, it also can sort of get into that lane as well, and that applies both to the metaphor and to the Panharmonium. So we're going to drive through it today. Now, I want to say something on here that I thought was really interesting. It's not properly stereo, so you can't use two different audio sources. You can send in a stereo source in, but you either get the effects out on both channels summed down to mono, so it'll be the same signal on both out, or you can have a fully dry left and right and a fully effects on the right channel, which I didn't realize going into that. So I don't know if that's something you need to consider at all, but something that I didn't know before I got into here. So here we go. Let's listen to what we got going on here now. I'm going to jump around in order here a little bit so you can hear first what I am driving in. So here is fully dry mixed here. I'm just sending a sawtooth wave coming out of the Mind Phaser. Totally dry. So you'll see on that front we got nothing going on here. I'll also say real quick before I derail myself too far, There is presets on here that I believe you can save snapshots of settings. I don't think you can actually like save the freeze setting or anything. You can't like save samples into that bank, I believe. For me, I think the workflow with the Panharmonium, as Matt also suggested when we were talking about it too, like you want to just explore, right? Like I don't think it's necessarily so much about like knowing every tiny bit of minutia about spectral analysis and, you know, spectral synthesis. And it's not about saving presets, it's about exploring. It's about mangling and taking different shapes and creating new ones from them. So again, here is our triangle wave. If we blend in the Panharmonium, you're going to notice in this patch, it's not tuned exactly the same. And I'm going to go into all the specifics of what we have going on here. But if I can just try and tune it by ear, it's not going to be exact, but we'll try and just get a little bit close. If you send volt per octave to your oscillator, you're probably going to want to do it to both. And the other thing, and I'm just going to say right off the rip here, this is just to demonstrate. I don't think like you're probably going to choose other wave shaping sources if you're just straight up sending one oscillator, but we'll get into how it goes. This is just to sort of give you an idea of what the Panharmonium actually is doing. So I hope this can be at least a good demonstration of that. And if you watch on the oscilloscope, it's starting to go pretty wild from what is a pretty straightforward shape, because we are using the analysis section up here on the top. And I want to go over that first. So again, I'm sorry to derail this too much. We're going to take out our dry completely, and you'll hear right now it's converting to sine waves, which, if I'm not mistaken, the analysis circuit, it's not analog, but the analysis section of it is converting everything to sine waves. And when we choose different waveforms in the section, it's sort of like resynthesizing it. But we're going to start with a sine wave, because that will give us a good idea of our analysis. Now there's this sine cosine wave here that kind of lets it blend a little more. It can be hard to hear depending on the setting. So I think with this straight up one pitch saw wave that's coming in, we're not going to hear too much change between the two of those. So just think we're in the sine wave territory right now. The first section is the analyzer section, so the more slices you use, the more accurate to the original voice it's going to be, but it also introduces a lot of latency when you really start to crank it up, and it goes from 17 slices to 200 slices, but beside it is this multiplier circuit here. In this demo here, this isn't going to be super useful, I don't think. Oh, you do hear that changing. I want to point out the latency though, so we're going to mix it in 50-50. If I change the pitch, it takes a while to reflect in there, right? Just keep that in mind. It changes the timbre. Everything on here changes the timbre. Again, the workflow is just noodle and explore where it changes things. Just remember, if you start cranking up the amount of slices in the analyzer section, it's going to introduce latency, which may or may not matter to you. If you're droning and you like the tone, go nuts. But yeah. Here's your micro and your multiplier. For now, let's just stay in the lowest slices and multiplication. I am going to introduce more voices though, so right now we're fully wet. And I'm not entirely sure. Oh, this is super loud. We need to zoom out. Here we go. There's a little bit of break up there, which is... I'm going to say off the rip, a lot of what I really like about this is when it gets nasty and digital, in that like we hear some like lo-fi-ness going on, right? Which I really enjoy. If we blend in the original signal too, we've kind of created just a crazy super saw, right? So that's one application that I really love. I like the digital grit, right? It sounds kind of lo-fi. I'm not sure what makes up these voices here. Like, am I just adding octave on top of octave? No, you wouldn't be able to hear that, right? Is it just spreading them a little bit? I'm not really sure. But those are the modifiers. Let's bring it back down to one voice. And then there's the blur, which doesn't change anything in one voice, but if we bring it back up, yeah, it kind of smooths out the different ones. And we get some of that stepping of the spectral analysis where it's like glitching almost, which I really like, but you can remove it using blur, right? So for me, I want to use as little blur as possible because I kind of like the nastiness of it, right? Now I am using a little bit of feedback. If we take the feedback down, it gets a little more straightforward. If we bring in the original mix, you kind of blend that fidelity with a little high-end harshness, which I really like. And then again, so we're talking about the tools you can use to shape this new creation that you've made. You can feed it back into itself, which, you know, there's ways to do that with the original circuit, obviously, elsewhere, but that is it going there. Let's take the feedback down. Let's bring the blend back up and the voices back down a little bit more again. Now, on that note, let's bring in some voices. On that note, if we want to use a waveform that's a little bit different, that is the triangle wave. A different saw, if we blend in the saw, I hear a little bit of bagpipiness actually. And then there's a super saw shape, which it's almost like we're so sawed that you can't saw anymore. And I like that. And so listening to that, going to square wave, I'm really hearing bagpipes, I don't know why. Blurs down, voices up. If we change the pitch, I'm tuning by ear still, sorry. That might be some of the super saw effect too, is it's just not completely in tune, and that's okay. Oh, that sounds really nice. So that's the oscillator bank section. That was the modifier section. In the other part of the analysis section, there's the center. So you can sort of morph, and I'm going to switch over to fully wet again. You can morph the center, and you will also crack out, and this is when I was first trying this out, I was like, why can't I get any sound out of this thing? And it's because when you this is sort of the center frequency is sort of where it's analyzing from, right? So if you think of it sort of like a bandpass filter that's sucking up how much it wants to analyze, this is where the frequency is. And I think it's stepped, or maybe just its output is stepped. But you can also change its like resonance here with the bandwidth. So you can make it really narrow. And again, I don't know the specifics of why or what you want to use on what here. But as always, I think the workflow with this is just tweak it and go. So I'm going down in pitch again. You notice there was a big delay on that one in changing it because our analysis is so cranked up. That's okay. But just like, think of this as timbre shaping, right? If you want more sub, then point your center down a little lower, right? Or if you find you're like muting it out, point it up a little bit. Make sure it's following that more closely. Now there is CV control over this one. So again, if you're doing volt per octave into your voice for at least this patch that I'm using right now, you want to probably mult it, change its frequency here and the center frequency there so that the incoming source and the outgoing source are in sync, basically. They're following the same sequence. But as we change that, you get nice stepping, and I'm thinking, you know, I'm a huge wavetable fan. I like that digital, like, jank, for lack of a better word. Now, on here, we also get our octave switch. And one thing I'll just say real quick on here that I thought was kind of funny, the 0 is not to the center because you get 3 octaves up and 2 down. However, it gets really digitally, and, you know, we're using the square wave right now, but even if I go into the sine wave, it kind of gets into square wave territory anyway, which is really fun. It sounds really good, but you get 3 octaves up if you want, because it's easier to combine pitches rather than stretch them apart to try and find stuff that isn't, or to try and listen to sound that isn't there. On this side, the glide, I believe the glide will help smooth out the transitions in the pitch. If I'm not mistaken, that's part of the tracking. But again, the workflow of the Panharmonium isn't, like, realistically, I mean, there's lots to chew on there if that is what you're after. If you're really interested in, like, thinking about spectral analysis, spectral synthesis, like, as a thought experiment, not as a thought experiment, but, like, if you're interested in sort of the audio science behind it, there's everything to chew on here for you, right? Don't sleep on glide just because I didn't cover it here. Bring it in. Blending for this patch sounds so good. But that is what you can do with the Panharmonium. Now, it's fun to CV scan through some things. There's a bit of just like I'm a little stuck on this analogy that my friend gave me about FM as trying to glitch out an oscillator. So like if we're FMing the center frequency of the analyzer, we're kind of bugging it out in this way. And you might hate how that sounds, but I love that. Because it kind of sounds wacky. If we take out our dry signal, you see how the fidelity of it is crackling down to sine waves, basically, right? Because it can't keep up. And I like that stuff. You might say that doesn't sound very good because it is getting into like super digital territory and you want super high fidelity or whatever. But if you have no taste like I do, I think this sweet. I think this stuff is super sweet. So glide going up. I'm not going to mangle a module on loan too deeply here, but you can reassign, not on this side, but on this side. You get two CV inputs, so there's the CV1 you can assign, I believe, by holding the tap and option input, or sorry, the tap/option input, and you can assign CV1 to one of these options, malt, VCS, feedback, and then CV2 over here, you can assign it to the wave, oct, and glide. I'm not going to do that here. We're just going to leave it with whatever it's set to, and in this case, CV1 going in. I don't even know what it's modulating. But that's, again, it's just like Panharmonium is all about just exploring what crazy timbres you can construct out of unexpected things. So on that note, let's send Piston Honda in. So here's the dry. Piston Honda in dry. Wet. I like that saw. I'm obsessed with saws. Let's try and tune it by ear. Turn it up a little bit, feedback down. Crank the voices. Change the octave down. And you just get like wave shaping options that are just chaotic in a good way. Octave up. And I'll mention too, when you change these analysis settings to be more slices, it slows everything else down. Like changes in octave take longer time too. I point those things out not because I find them super annoying, just to like, if you're using this in a live set, probably keep your analyzer down unless you're ready for a little time for it to take effect. Anyway, using it as a wave shaping source is a great thing, but I think most of what people are going to come at the Panharmonium with is turning something that like is completely not a synthesizer at all, like say the Interstellar Radio. Okay, here's Interstellar Radio, totally dry. So why can't that be our synthesizer? Let's bring that in. Bring in our steady state gate just to give it a little bit of envelope. Go over to the resynthesis side. Now let's generate a new sequence for fun. There we go. So I pitch that down 2 octaves too. There's the dry again. But I think the thing that most everybody, when I have, posted this, has been asking me about is running drums through it, if I am some people's drum guy. then why don't we hear what that sounds like? So, in goes our drums. Funny, it takes time for it to fade out. So drums are going in. So let's listen to Totally Dry right now. Oh, I'm gating that, which is also interesting. And I'm like, again, this isn't that crazy exploratory territory. I'm like, do I want to gate that? So here we go. So here's no gate. We're just going to run a whole drum sequence into this just because that's sort of the thing that everyone, myself included, was expecting or wondering what would sound like. And I think I'm going to use a clap for that reason, just because it's like a very classic drum melodic sound. In comes the Ericsson's clap. And I'm kind of intentionally trying to spread this across like the most modules as possible. There's the clap. In comes the hats. And I'll mention real quick as well, there is a drum mode on here for turning an incoming signal into a drum kit by use of this incoming clock, which is a crazy use for it as well. But we're kind of going to do the opposite. We're going to take drums in and turn them into a synthesizer, I think. If you all are big Blush Response fans like I am, in Joey's live set, Joey uses a Panharmonium like for running the whole mix through, so I think that includes the synth and everything, right? The kit, the output of the everything. So let's try and do some of that now here. Let's turn up our hi-hats. This isn't groundbreaking drums, but it should show you what it sounds like. So in comes the Panharmonium, and I'm just going to noodle with this. I have no idea what this is going to sound like. I'm setting a pitch right now, so let's go fully wet. Let's get to an init patch of sorts. Let's go sine wave in the middle with the lowest latency. Feedback is out, blend is out. Oh, I'm way down an octave. Sorry, let's go back up to 0. Glide down. So you hear it like... And again, this is something with this, like, one synthesized voice is one thing, but like when I have all these different voices going into it, the spectral center is probably really important, right? So if I crank that up... we can just make a synth. And again, this is following my volt per octave tracking. So if I take that out, I can turn this whole drum set into a supersaw. And I'm losing a lot of amplitude. Why is that? Freeze. So you can turn it into a complex oscillator in that way, right? I made one sound for my drum here so it can drone. Glide up. Frequency. All the voices. All the blur. All the feedback. Yeah. And then drums back in. I wonder if you're like sampling the crowd or something, you could find a really cool use for that. Feedback down, blur down, octave up 1. And bring it back in. Sine waves. See, there's that problem with the latency, though, where the output isn't going to follow the input, right? So I can't blend in the input. It's cool, you can hear those kicks coming through. But oh, so if I CV modulate now, that bandwidth positive. Blur is up, voice is down. Super saw. This isn't necessarily what you have in mind when you think Panharmonium, is it? Dry in? Well, kind of like a texture on top, you know? Focus on the higher harmonics. And you can use, it generates its own clock that sort of like compensates for the latency. But yeah, that's chaos. Okay, so just to make it more chaotic, what if we do what we did before and run our gate through that? I don't know, maybe we'll try and track full productive. I don't know. Chaos. I'm telling you, it's mayhem. And you know what? A lot of us are in modular for the mayhem. Well, that kind of, by gating it, I've sort of chosen to follow the clock, or to follow one clock at least. Okay, now we're talking. Filter up. Yeah. Kicks out. I don't know what's happening there, but I like it. Less modulation. Kick in. Filter. And kick in. Yeah. Reverb on top of everything, including me. Yeah. Those voices, let's go in the square. Why not? Octave down. What if your drums were the melody? Filter, fluid, down. Alright, I'm about to have a lot of fun with this. Hey, thank you so much for watching. Panharmonium is a monster of sound exploration. I know that sounds like marketing material, but there really is no better way to describe it. It's just like sound mangling mayhem that will keep you entertained for hours. So I'm about to be. Hope you're doing well. Take care. Like, comment, subscribe, do all that crap that YouTube's always on my case, but not promoting to you, and I'll see you in the next video.